End time revelation. Bite Brother Isaac, more calamity are on the way. Brother, we are living in the end of time, and the Lord has given this message for his people in regard to the end of time. Right in the beginning of the year the Lord revealed to us this year 2020 was the year of purification, for his people are supposed to sanctify themselves and walk in the fear of the Lord, and the Lord will be with those who walk in his fear doing his will. He will support them and fight for them, but those who live in distraction and sin in this year, tragedy will befall them. The Lord said the devil has many plans for this year. Those of my people who fail to watch and pray will fall victim. Brother, the Lord expect his people to be spending time in fasting and prayer, as the devil is planning to kill a great number of innocent in order to precipitate their souls to the place of torment. However, the Lord expect his children to walk in strict discipline and abstinence in this year of tremendous shaking. The Lord showed me that in this critical and prophetic year his mighty hand is out to perform clean-up and separation of good from evil. The Lord warned and said, I will operate separation of good and evil. I will separate those who fear me from those who don't fear me. The Lord warned that his children that are failing to walk in his fear, tragedy will befall them in this year, for they shall be great prophetic and apocalyptic event in this year 2020. The Lord warned that 2020 is a year where he will work in his own sovereign way. Those who are failing to repent will not be spared, they will be hit. The Lord said, in view of what is to come, the church must spend this year on their knee, praying to implore the mercy of the Lord because of judgment and calamity that is to strike this year. The Lord said to me, this sickness of coronavirus that is hitting the world is plotted and decided in a Luciferian meeting by the elite who are in covenant with the devil. They are people holding meeting and releasing sickness in circulation. When the Lord showed me their meeting, I saw in their gathering there were demons, and the Lord said to me, the sole purpose of their gathering is to release sickness that will kill people so that they would go to hell. The Lord said these demons of hell in this gathering are the one that caused natural disaster, earthquake, plane crash. They also caused war in many regions of the world so that people's souls will fall in hell. Brother, I told you before the pandemic that I was in retreat in fasting and prayer, and the Lord revealed to me that many people will die in many ways, for the devil and his servant has planned the death of many through traffic accident, planes crash, natural catastrophe and sickness. The Lord showed me demon and agent of Satan working in crossroad, roundabout and public place. The Lord showed me a Luciferian meeting that was attended by delegate from all over the world and demon. The meeting was attended by Satan himself. They were seriously planning destruction, including these wind of sickness that we see in the world. They are plot of the devil. People will die many ways. The Lord warned and said, my children must always be ready by continually washing their garment and purifying themselves. The Lord said my people should be wary of sin. They should not fear death, they should fear sin, for the wages of sin is death. The Lord said many are afraid of death and many are afraid of this virus instead of fearing sin and hell. The Lord said, tell the world to fear the fire of hell, not death, for everybody will die. You're gonna remind them of the reality of heaven and hell. Everything depend on the way they are conducting themselves on the earth in relation to this critical times of the end. Warn them, for this is the time of preparation. This is it. From now on my imminent return will intervene. There will be signs signaling the imminent return of the Son of Man. In these visions the Lord lamented the number of his children living in distraction. They failed to consecrate and dedicate themselves in prayer, yet days are evil and time is short. The Lord showed me how the devil is catching those who live in distraction. The Lord has been speaking to me and giving me many messages. The Lord told me I have spoken in many ways and many times to warn my people and humanity. You got to understand that you are living in the end of time. Despite my repeated warning to the church and the world, people are not paying attention. That is why you see what is happening in the world today. Since people are ignoring my warning, I have decided to allow these plague, woes and pandemic that is hitting the world. The Lord said to me, my servant, the pain and suffering of this global pandemic today is nothing in comparison to what is to come. This is just the beginning. You will warn my people that there are calamity on the way that will kill more than this global pandemic, and people will die in great number, for my return is imminent. I have warned the world by sending many of my servant. However, even the church is ignoring me. Therefore plague will hit the world from this year onward. The world will be in distress before my return. Tough times are ahead and there will be many dead. The Lord was saying, I have warned humanity to repent but they are ignoring me. I sent many servants but the people are hardening their heart and failing to listen. Corruption that it caused me to destroy the ancient city of Sodom and Gomorrah, such as man marry man, woman marrying woman, and bestiality have become prominent in this world. This world will not be spared from the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah. I will send my servant so that my people can be ready. If people don't listen, judgment will come. The Lord said people are afraid of this virus instead of being afraid of hell. The Lord said this sickness is an attack, a hit of the devil who is striking the human world. Coronavirus is a fire vomited by the dragon. He is vomiting his fire on the earth out of anger because time is finished for them. Their anger against humanity is increasing. Note that beside the virus people will die in accident and various circumstances. Then the Lord showed me his clock when I saw the time. It was late and time is finished. Very soon the trumpet of God will sound. There are people saying you keep telling us that the Lord is coming but he is not coming. You got understand that beside the trumpet that is to sound soon, death can strike you any time. It is appointed to man to die once, then judgment come. The demotion of Pope Benoit and the promotion of Pope Francis by the devil. Last time in 2017 I deliver a message that caused stir. I said the present Pope is pleasing the devil a lot for he is carrying out the agenda and plan of the devil in a meticulous way. The Lord said many people don't know why the Pope Benoit XVI had to resign. He was instructed by the devil to change the Bible in removing God's command against homosexuality, lesbianism and bestiality. But he refused that responsibility and decided to resign. As a result, Satan himself chose the Pope Francis. I said the devil is really happy about this present Pope for he is implementing his agenda meticulously. The Lord called the Vatican the throne of Satan and the kingdom of the woman seating on many water, the great Babylon. The Pope is working closely with the devil preparing the manifestation of the Antichrist. In the meantime the Lord is warning his children to prepare and be ready and on the alert, for every day of the week is the grace of God offered to humanity. God's children must seize the moment, clean their garment. The devil is more than ready to rule the earth and time are critical. The rapture is imminent. The wise will prepare themselves when they see world pandemic and disaster hitting the world, since more death will follow the coronavirus. There shall be global crisis and global recession, and the Pope will rush the manifestation of the man of sin to restore normality and world order. In the aftermath of the appearing of the man of sin, new anti-biblical law will be introduced and a universal church will be forced upon humanity, and none of will worship God unless he join the universal and ecumenic church. There shall be persecution of those oppose the new order. And thanks to database and internet that has people identity through different social network platform, rebels will be tracked. We were in fasting and prayer and the Lord said those who are not prudent and on the alert will be surprised. They are failing to grasp the danger of this moment. The Lord said tell my children to seize the opportunity to arrange their behavior now, for many will be surprised by the sound of the trumpet. Before my imminent return more plague, disasters and woe will fall on this world, more pandemic will be hitting the earth, things will get tough, those with eyes to see will arrange their lives and the rapture will happen. The enemy gonna use technology in order to locate the whereabouts of every man and woman on the earth, for people identity are already in the net. The children of darkness are working to identify who opposed to coming new order. I remember that I was in the market buying food when the Spirit of God began to point me to number on food label. The Spirit of God said these numbers were of the beast. This is the system of Satan where the human world is heading. No one will buy and sell unless he accept the number of the beast. The Lord told me the devil and his agent are multiplying. Meeting recently, they have adopted many resolution and decision, for the devil feel that there is no more time left before him. They have many plan and they are rushing. Brother, the Lord told me to warn his people to buy a new Bible, for he told me that the Bible will become scarce. The Lord said tell them to stop using Bible app on the phone, they must all buy a new Bible. Indeed, new law will prohibit Bible app and it will cease. The devil is holding regular meeting with the Pope and they are extremely preparing to take over the world and rule the world the moment the bride is gone. The Lord said they are serious and they are not playing like my children that are in distraction and asleep. The Lord's instruction is that His church must spend time watching and praying. They must be dedicated in prayer, living in my presence and reading their Bible. However, many of His people are not watching and praying. I remember a pastor who was telling me it is a good idea to gather together Christian, Muslim and Buddhist to pray together a God that is called the good God. I replied to him, there is no such thing as good God, the only good is Jesus Christ. Every man is kneel before Him and confess his sins in order to obtain the forgiveness of their sins. In that retreat the Lord instructed us to read the Bible in family and with children. We should not let children watching all these cartoons that are causing enchantment. The Lord warned that people will look for the Bible and they won't find good ones except the Bible of the Antichrist. Cartoon is enchantment. They don't belong to God, they are witchcraft. Many children dream that they are flying because of cartoon. The Lord revealed to me that there is a wire starting from the TV post going to hell. If you have been watching horror movies and these cartoons, demon will be rising from hell and they will land in your home. The Lord showed me how demon of hell come in many homes through TV. This is why many God children are moving away from TV. Be careful with what you are watching in TV. The Lord said the church must pray, for there is battle in this year 2020. When the Lord was warning the church to fight, He showed me His warrior angels descending to the world to attend spiritual warfare and to fight for His church in this year of conflict. The Lord warned that we must pray and fight for our country and oppose the giant demon Kinshasa, who is the cause of disorder, anarchy and confusion in the capital. The Lord said only strong prayer that can overthrow this giant. The Lord said my church is supposed to evangelize and be witness, but the devil makes sure that people sit to talk about pastor throwing discredit to the body of Christ. He complained that his children are talking about these servants, and this is hardening the heart of unbelievers, and the devil is winning souls thanks to the scandalous behavior of pastors. The Lord insists that we must testify about the good news of the gospel, not to waste time talking about the lives of pastors committing scandalous act. We must pray for the country, for the enemy is not given up. The deliverance of the country is a process. The Lord said there are His servants in this country, preparing His people for His return despite the numerous apostate pastors that have entered the occult. The Lord said His servants that have kept themselves from the corruption of the world are preparing His people in holiness, purity and sanctification despite these false pastors scandalizing the weak in the body of Christ. The devil is his servant in the church, but God's servant also exist. We should not join those who are gossiping about scandalous servant, otherwise we are helping the devil to harden the heart of the unbeliever. And we should not be shaken by scandalous action of false prophet. We should not trust in men. The Lord said the Antichrist is at work and he is pushing his agenda all over the world, and his number are in many product. In these vision the Lord spoke to me about the gospel singer Brother Michel. The Lord is happy about his prayer of repentance that must continue. The Lord said this is the time repentance of prayer. However, the Lord told me to talk to you, Brother Michel, about the issue of association. There are fellow Christian singer that you collaborate with, who are of the enemy. The Lord heard your prayer of repentance, for repentance prayer is what the Lord is expecting from His people in this critical moment. The Lord told me to warn His people to be prudent and on the alert. The Lord said He is happy about Benny Hinn repentance prayer that were accepted. He encouraged others who have joined Freemason to come out of that brotherhood, for these wind and sickness are things that the devil has plotted against humanity and the world. However, His children living in distraction will suffer. Therefore the Lord told me to warn His children to watch and pray.